Frictional Games has become well known for making some of the scariest games of all time, so when Soma finally released after 3 years in the making, expectations were high for it to be a very scary game. However, after playing through Soma, I can say that the game simply wasn't that scary. There are a handful of memorable and terrifying moments, but over the course of its 10-hour campaign, these moments are few and far between. Even myself, an easily terrified guy who normally doesn't play horror games without a few friends over, played through Soma multiple times in the dark with headphones on, and I never really jumped out of my seat. So I think that many people are going to be disappointed by Soma and that it probably won't go on to top their horror game lists. But I also anticipate that people will come to Soma looking for only a scary game and will have had no idea about the amazing story they're about to be told. At many times, Soma puts telling its deep and detailed story first and scaring the players second. There were plenty of moments throughout my playthrough where I stopped and said, this would have been a perfect place for a scare. But Soma doesn't take every opportunity to scare you, because it wants you to focus on the story. But while that story will stay in your thoughts long after you finish the game, Soma lacks replay value, and its gameplay does nothing to stand out from the crowd of glorified hide-and-seek horror games. So is it worth the $30? Let's dive a bit deeper.
Hello? Did something go wrong?
Because the story of Soma is easily the best thing about the game, I'm going to try my best to not spoil it for you. You play as Simon. A lot of things happen to Simon. Some are bad, some are weird, and some are just plain tragic. A team of people in an underwater facility, Pathos 2, are attacked by hostile robots that have started to behave like people. Simon wants to try and live, so the player must guide him to live. And that's it, that's all I'm going to say about the story. About 3 hours in, the main goal of the game becomes clear, and I love seeing what kind of turns the story would take, so explaining that story any further would kind of lessen that experience for you. One thing I will say about the story that reinforces my earlier statement about being a horror game second, is that Simon is not a silent protagonist, and he talks quite a bit. Simon will make comments to himself or audibly shriek in terror when things go wrong, and he'll even make some lighthearted remarks here and there, such as when a service robot helps him open a door.
Well, thanks, little guy.
All of these things work against a strict horror feel in the game since you're playing another person and not yourself, but you've got to realize that the goal of the game is to tell the story of Simon and his experiences and not that of the players. However, as the story progresses, Simon ultimately grows out of his lightheartedness as more bad, weird, and tragic things start to happen to him. It's enjoyable to see Simon's character develop throughout his journey. Visually, Soma is a mixed bag. Artistically, Soma has an incredible amount of detail in its world. There are hundreds of emails and files to read, there are items littered throughout rooms and logical places, and it all helps to bring Pathos 2 to life in a way that few other games can. Although I will say that the 1 ounce of nudity in the game feels entirely unnecessary. Imagine the detail of Gone Home, spread across a lengthy campaign, but without the low-poly hairbrushes. Unfortunately, like Gone Home, Soma has its fair share of graphical problems. While the game only ever got as low as 40 FPS on my GTX 660, there were countless long stutters throughout the game as new parts of the level loaded in, and I mean long stutters. I played through Soma once on my PC and another time on my PS4, and these long and annoying stutters happened often on both. Frictional has stated that they're working on patching these issues, which is nice, but here's hoping that they also work on making Soma compatible with NVIDIA Shadowplay. Unfortunately, Soma hates Shadowplay, so rather than record with desktop capture and have horribly pixelated dark areas, the footage you're seeing right now is coming from the PS4. But I can assure you Soma looks every bit as good as, and even better on PC than what you're seeing now. The sound design in Soma is especially impressive. Items in the physics engine will make different sounds depending on their impact, and enemies sound menacing as they walk right past you. I can't tell if these enemies have impaired senses, or if they're just complete idiots. The AI in Soma definitely needs work. Many times enemies have had me backed into a corner, staring me down, had me dead to rights, and they will just walk away, do a complete 180 and leave the room. And then they'll come back and do the same thing again. Some enemies do not want to leave their posts, and because you're navigating through small corridors and rooms, sometimes you'll feel like enemies are just camping you. The one place where I feel Soma really misses the mark is its gameplay. There's nothing really bad about it, it's just too simple to set itself apart. Aside from things like key items, there are no items to find. Nothing like tinderboxes, lamp oil, health potions, even something like batteries for your flashlight. Without anything of that sort, the majority of rooms are going to feel empty. All of these countless empty lockers and shelves could have been filled with some kind of item, but as a result, a lot of people have started to brand Soma as a walking simulator, which sounds absurd at first, but when you think about it, true. Take what I'm about to say with a grain of salt. There is no reason at all why Simon can't use a weapon. There's one point in the game when Simon has to use a stun rod, but once he's done with it, he just throws it to the ground. When I consider the entirety of Soma's levels and story, There are plenty of other gameplay styles that the game could take and still fit the horror bill. It could have been something as combat heavy as Dead Space, or something as bare bones as Silent Hill. It's not that I want guns in Soma, it's that I at least want some kind of gameplay. Horror games can have combat and still be scary. Why can't we have more horror games these days that prove that? Oh, that's why. Soma's final problem, the most debatable of the problems I've listed, is its asking price. Walking away from Soma, I can say that I thoroughly enjoyed the story and the experience and would recommend the game to other people. But at $30, how much content in the game are we getting for that price? Well, the answer is not that much. Throughout its campaign, you're presented with choices that seem meaningful, but they have little to no consequence, and there's only one ending. I would actually say that multiple playthroughs might lower your opinion of the game once you see how pointless your choices actually were. Soma does have Steam Workshop support, but other than that, once you beat the game, you're done. Ultimately, while I would say that I think the journey and the story of Soma are just barely worth $30 to me, I don't think anyone's going to hold it against you if you decide to wait for a sale. Soma might not have been the most terrifying game that most people wanted, but it's more of an assault on your mind. It's got plenty of memorable moments and a perfectly realized and thought-provoking story. It definitely has its fair share of problems, but these problems will seem like minor bumps in the road when you look back at Soma as one of the best sci-fi video game stories of all time, and a well-polished experience that was well worth the wait. How much you want to spend for that experience is up to you. For all the best PC gaming news and reviews, be sure to head over to kbmod.com.